Welcome to Rebuild a Toy.
It's time for our first episode ever of Matchbox Monday. This series will replace the Vintage 70s series that I was producing for Mondays. So we will focus then on Matchbox vehicles on Monday. The first one that I've selected for this week is the GMC Scenic Cruiser. This is a brand new casting for 2018, and this is presently the only variation of this casting. Interestingly though, this was not the first casting of a Scenic Cruiser produced by Matchbox. They also produced the same basic vehicle with a completely different name. That name was the Greyhound Coach. So that casting was produced from 1966 through 1971. There were two variations. The variation in 1966 through 1969 had the old original Lesney wheels on it. Then starting in 1970, they were using the new Superfast style wheels. So in 1971, they discontinued production of that. There were no colors on that. It was bare metal. What I thought was interesting about this is that this particular casting deviates from the prototype in a very significant way. It was true both of the first release in 1966 and with this release as well. And that has to do with these huge panoramic windows on the side. You see that there are three of them? Well, I'm going to insert a photo below of a preserved original, and you'll notice that there are actually four windows, panoramic windows, on the side of the original prototype. So Matchbox shortened the vehicle slightly in order to get it to fit with their normal size and not make it too much smaller. It would be difficult to put detail on it if they would have produced this the full length of the prototype. I was looking at some of the differences between the original design and this current model. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is in the older style bus, the one that was produced from 66 through 1971, it had suspension on the front two axles. So this axle here and this axle here had suspension. The rear axle was essentially what you would call a drag axle. It did not support the bus. And so it had an oval-shaped hole through the base so that the wheel could move up and down freely and not interfere with the movement of the bus. The reason for that is that the air ride was one of the major features of the prototype. It had a nice, soft, gentle ride, and so Matchbox wanted to simulate that in their casting. And so they put nice suspension on those first two axles, and then the third axle, it was just there for looks. On the current version, I'll turn it over, you'll want to see the base anyway. Take a look at that base. GMC Scenic Cruiser. Interestingly, Scenic Cruiser, that's not how GMC spelled it. It was all one word with just one letter C in the middle. So they kind of crammed them together and created a single word. Matchbox broke it out here, probably for clarity. But you can see that the axles on this vehicle do not have suspension. These are fixed axles. So this model loses the suspension that was available in that earlier version, the Greyhound bus version. Also, this is obviously a painted casting. It's not bare metal as the original was. But you can still see through the windows, which is nice. So there's the detail. You see the driver's seat there and the steering wheel and the first row of passenger seats. And then in the back, the passenger seat sat a little bit higher. See if you can get some light coming through the sunroof there. So there's some passenger seats. And because this casting is missing two panoramic windows, the number of seats in here is not accurate. It's overall shorter than the original prototype. And then there's the sunroofs. And those sunroofs existed on the real prototype model as well. That is not just there as a cost-saving feature. But that is Matchbox's take on the GMC Scenic Cruiser. A fascinating bus with an interesting history. Thanks for watching.